what you can see here is a painting that I've made in response to the artworks made by school pupils for the TiPACCs project. We challenged the pupils to make artworks based on what they'd learned about tipping points in Antarctica, and then I had the really interesting task of gathering up all of those artworks and making my own. It was really great to see all of the different responses that the pupils had to the topic of tipping points and how strongly their own ideas and feelings about these changes in the environment came through in the artwork that they made. Something that came up quite a lot in our conversations that we talked about a few times was the fact that it's really hard to visualize and imagine the events we're talking about in Antarctica, since it's a place where most people are never going to go. So I was thinking about ways to make Antarctica more immediate and more real to people, and it felt like a good idea then to make a painting that people could actually walk on and touch, so that they're really in contact with Antarctica. So in one way, the artwork has a very simple idea, which is that you can stand on Antarctica, something you'll probably never get to do on the actual continent. And I think that just doing that and imagining that it's a real place could change the way that you think about it. So the actual painting that you see on the floor structure is named after a famous artwork by René Magritte, The Reckless Sleeper from 1927. And it's a painting of a man who's sleeping in a little box above what looks like a rock or a tombstone with lots of symbolic objects. So thinking about the changes that are happening on the continent of Antarctica and what the school pupils and I learned about Antarctic tipping points through the project, Magritte's painting gave me the idea to use these motifs that you see on the floor painting. Some of them I've borrowed directly from artworks that the pupils made. An example of that is this lemon squeezer, and I just thought that was such a great symbol for human pressures on the Earth's resources. This concept of pressure came up a lot in our conversations about Antarctic tipping points because of the feeling of a build-up of suspense that you have when you know something's going to happen, but you can't quite say when. And I thought that that uncertainty was especially interesting because uncertainties may be an undesirable thing sometimes in science and in research, but it's a really, really important part of why the tipping point phenomenon is so unique and so important to understand. There's also representations of things like ceramics and clay pots, and I've been thinking quite a lot about what we humans are going to leave behind as our legacy, maybe on Antarctica. How it's not necessarily the big things that will be left behind to define us as a species, but everyday things. Things like pots survive the longest. And finally, you see that all of these things, these motifs and symbols, I've placed them on sheets of paper that's kind of floating down, littering onto this dark surface. The paper for me is about this massive quantity of human knowledge and ideas, all this stuff we have, all this information. But what do we do with it, all of this research? We know so much now about what's going to happen to the Earth's ecosystems, to Antarctica, if humans keep going down the path that we're on. But where does all of that research and knowledge go? Here it could be kind of floating down into an abyss, if you like, or a dark ocean. These are like little rafts, little bits of knowledge, little possibilities. I'm interested to see what people are going to make of this, what they'll interpret by themselves of these symbols and images that I've put into the painting. And I hope that I've left it open enough that there'll be lots of different ideas and interpretations.